She has asked about the practice. What we have to practice and actually what we have to do to attain Nibbana. That's called Pratipada. First of all, you should have enough merit to understand the Dhamma, which means understand the Lord Buddha's doctrine. Because you can't study the Lord Buddha's doctrine. You have to understand it. You have to understand it. It doesn't happen by just listening to it. You can listen to your teacher. When you listen to your teacher, you will get a piece of information. That's called view. You can get a view, some knowledge. That's only knowledge. When you get that knowledge, you have to apply that into your life. Only then can you understand it. But to understand that, you should have enough merit. To meet a proper teacher, you should have enough merit. Because you don't know the person you have met is a proper teacher or not. You can't choose a teacher. The teacher will be chosen. By whom? Can you choose? No. By vipaka. Vipaka means the merits you have earned. They are using those merits. You will meet a teacher. That means you should have enough merits to meet a teacher. Once you have met him, then you need to listen to him and obey. You should have enough merits to obey your teacher. Otherwise, you will practice whatever you want. Because you have learned something, you know something, you have heard about Buddhism, you have various types of views you got. You have learned and you have studied. Therefore, you might practice your own path, even though you meet your teacher. Therefore, you should have enough merit and you should have good attitude to practice what your teacher asks you to practice. Otherwise, you will practice your own way. That means you should have enough merits and attitude. Therefore, first of all, you have to change your attitude. If you really want to attain Nibbana, you should follow your teacher. If you really believe in your teacher, then you should start following him. Otherwise, you have to find a teacher according to your knowledge. A person who have understood the Dhamma, who has achieved something. You have to find someone. Then you need to listen to that person. Don't ever try to do what you know. Because you are not an arahant. That means what you know is not the path. If you have been doing something, if you have been practicing the path, whatever path you came to know about, that's not the path. Therefore, first of all, you should develop your attitude to obey your teacher. It doesn't matter who you are. You just need to obey your teacher. If you can develop that part, you will definitely attain Nibbana. That means you don't have your own choice. You always follow your teacher. You don't have a wanting. You have a wanting in your mind, but you never proceeded. You never executed. You always obey your teacher and get the guidance from your teacher. Thus I told you, you should have enough merits to find a great teacher, first of all. Then if you have found him, now you need to obey. Becoming a teacher is very easy. But becoming a student is the hardest thing in the world. You all can be teachers, but it's really difficult for you to become a student, because students should follow the teacher. Teachers can guide others. Actually, they are nailed because they are teachers. They can't move forward. That's what happened to your nursery teacher. She is still teaching to nursery students. Now you got your PhD. Because she was a teacher. She stopped her studies. Now she wanted to teach. Therefore, don't try to become a teacher unless you are the Buddha or an Arahant. Be a student. Be a student and then help others. Whatever you have understood, you can teach others, but don't consider you as a teacher. If you become a teacher, your life or your path will be anchored. You can't sail your boat. Then, you obey your teacher, and whenever you are vexed, whenever you feel vexation, try to associate your teacher. Because you can have a teacher and you can have many teachers like you have right now. You can have many teachers, but if you don't go to your teacher and ask for help, you don't use your teacher. That means, again, you don't have a teacher. Whenever you have a problem, you go to your teacher and ask for help. Try to follow these things. If you can follow this, then definitely you will win. You don't have to suffer. When you are vexed, you need to go to your teacher. Don't try to come out of vexation. That's not the practice that we should practice. Lord Buddha asks us to practice a different way. We have a different way. But lay people, their practice is when they are vexed, they try to come out of vexation. But our practice is when we are vexed, we try to eradicate vexation. Because we all have understood that vexation is created, vexation is a process. It has its own causes. When those causes come together, vexation is created. If you know that, now you can start a different practice. If you know that. That's why to have a different practice, you have to understand the Dhamma. If you don't understand the Dhamma, you don't have to practice. Because to practice, you should learn something first. If you don't learn anything, then you can't practice, and you don't have to practice, and you don't need to practice. If you have seen anicca, then you may have seen dukkha, which means the false sense of existence. If you have seen that, and if you have seen anicca, you know that that false sense of existence is also a process. It's not a fixed thing, and self is an illusion. It's only a sense. You will understand that if you can understand anicca, the theory of cause and effect. If you can understand that, then you know this sense is also a process. That's the problem. That's the only problem. We can eradicate that because it's a process. If it is an entity, we can't eradicate it. We can transform it to something. Most people don't know about anicca. They don't follow the theory of cause and effect. They think that the world is fixed. Everything is fixed. If everything is fixed, they try to transform it from one to another. That's why when they feel vexation or suffering, they try to convert that to happiness. But they think that that's happiness, but it's not happiness. It's called pleasure. They try to convert it to pleasure, but they don't know about pleasure. They think that they convert that to happiness, and they try to be happy by converting their vexation to happiness. That's why they are restless. They have to work their fingers to the bone every day to earn money, because they know every time they get vexed, then they have to transform it. But if you have understood the Dhamma, and if you know about the anicca, if you don't know about the anicca, what should you have to do? What should you have to do? If you don't know about anicca, you need to go to your teacher and listen to him. Go to your teacher and discuss with him. And let him teach you. That's your responsibility. Once you have got the information, once you have got that knowledge from your teacher, then you need to apply it and understand it thoroughly. You can apply anicca to everything, because the anicca, we are talking about anicca, that's the theory of cause and effect, and actually that's the theory of everything. Therefore, you can apply the theory of cause and effects to everything, anything in the world. Anything. You can apply it to anything, and you will understand the world after that. When you know anicca, you know dukkha. You will realize dukkha. You will realize that this is only a false sense of existence. This is not self. This is only a sense. It's false sense. It's a false sense. Then you will understand that. When you understand that, then you will realize that I'm suffering unnecessarily. You will realize that I'm suffering unnecessarily. But now, if you don't understand the Dhamma, you may think that mental suffering is unavoidable. like physical suffering. Mental and physical suffering is unavoidable. That's how you may think like that, because that's your experience. But when you have understood the Dhamma, when you have seen the jati, which means the false sense of existence, when you have seen it, when you have understood it, then you will realize that you can eradicate it if you want. That means suddenly your decision changes. Once you have understood the Dhamma, your decision changes. Before, you thought that mental suffering is unavoidable. That's how other people think. They always think that mental suffering is unavoidable. That's why they try to make them happy. A stand-up comedian come to the stage and try to make them laugh. Why? They try to convert their pain, their mental pain, their vexation into a pleasure. That's why they pay a lot to those type of comedians. They think that their sanctuary is in that comedian. How spiritually poor they are. And finally, they try to find their salvation through a stand-up comedian. But they have religious leaders, they have spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, but they can't find their salvation from them, through them. They always go to a stand-up comedian and try to laugh for an hour. Then they forget everything and they listen to that comedian and then forget everything during that hour. After that, they have to live in the world again. Then again they will suffer. But somehow they can enjoy by thinking that I have enjoyed at least an hour in my life. Because they try to convert. They try to convert because they haven't seen anicca. Therefore, they always try to convert. They don't know that we can eradicate suffering. To understand that, they should have seen anicca. When you practice anicca, when you see anicca, when you understand it thoroughly, you will know that everything is a process, not an entity. If something is a process, it has a beginning. There are some causes. It has a beginning. Then if you can eradicate all those causes, then the effect will be eradicated, or the effect won't be formed. It is forming due to causes. When the causes come together, an effect is formed. It is generated. It is formed due to those causes. Then if you can stop the process, then effect won't be formed. Then if you have understood about jati, that means the false sense of existence, then if that is the cause, if that is the reason, that you are suffering, then you can cease that process. You can cease it, then you won't experience suffering. But the thing is, if you have seen those things, or if you have seen this doctrine, now your practice is different to lay people's practice. If you have understood the Dhamma, then you should have a different practice. That practice is, when you are vexed, then you should understand the vexation, and you should see the causes, because you have seen anicca. Therefore, you should know that if your mind is vexed, this vexation is a process. If you have seen anicca, you should know this body is a process. If you have seen anicca, you should know that an electron is a process. An electron is also a process. If you have seen anicca, you will realize that. Energy, matter, and everything. I don't say time, because time is an illusion. I don't have to say that. But energy, matter, everything. Everything is anicca. Everything is anicca means everything is a process. If you take an electron, that electron is in dynamic equilibrium. It is dynamic. That equilibrium is not static. You can't find a fixed electron. That electron is in a process. It is being created right now. And energy is also being created right now. According to E equals mc squared, you can understand that. Therefore, if you take an electron, it's also in a process. Then what about an atom? An atom is also in a process. Then what about your body? You all know that your body is made up of atoms. Then your body is also a process. And what about this house, this hall? What about this fan? What about this microphone? This microphone. What about this whiteboard? Everything is in a process. You should be able to realize that. Then what about your mind? Your mind is also a process. You should realize that. But you won't feel, or you don't feel like that. You only feel that it's a fixed object or a machine. You use that machine to think, like a washing machine. You use your washing machine to wash your clothes. Then you use your mind to think. But it doesn't work like that. Your washing machine is also a process, but you can't see. You can't see that process because that process is so subtle. Because you can't see the electron. You can't see an electron. Therefore, if you can't see an electron, you don't know, or you can't see how the electron is being formed. Every time it is being formed. It is not fixed. then your mind is also the same. Your mind is not continuous. Your mind is discrete. Each time the mind is created. Each time the mind is created. Try to understand that. That's how you can hear. That's how you can see. That's how you taste. Then you all should know that everything is a process. Then the suffering is also a process. Therefore, you have a chance to avoid your suffering. You have a chance to eradicate your suffering. Actually, when I say eradicate your suffering, that sentence is wrong according to the philosophy. To eradicate something should exist first. Something should be fixed. That's why you can eradicate. But actually, what you can say is, you can cease the process. Because the Duka, which means suffering, let's talk about suffering that you feel, that suffering, mental suffering, is also a process and it is being created. When the mind is created, suffering is also created. When the mind is created, jati is also created. The false sense of existence is also created. The mind is also created. Everything is created. Nothing is fixed. Therefore, don't ever think you have a mind and by using that mind, you perceive things. The mind is created and jati is created and suffering is created. All these three processes occur at the same time. Then if you suffer, you should know that that process occurs and suffering is created. Then you should be able to cease the process. That's what the practice is. You should cease the process. To cease the process, you should know what are the causes. Then you can learn it from the Buddha. You can learn, and the Buddha said, the cause of suffering, which means the cause of vexation, the cause of jati is attachment. Your practice should be based on ceasing the process of attachment. Because attachment is also a process. Then we will find out what are the causes of attachment. Then the Buddha said, the main cause of attachment is ignorance. Lack of understanding about the universe, lack of understanding about nature, lack of understanding about the reality. Therefore, we should learn the reality. To learn the reality, the Lord Buddha came to this world to teach us because he has seen the reality of the world. He is the only person who can see the reality because he has achieved the greatest wisdom in the world. He could access every truth in the world, every wisdom in the universe by accessing. He came to know about anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca is a characteristic of universe. Try to understand that. That's why you can apply anicca to the universe, entire universe, wherever it is. The ocean, land, or the sky, or the space. Wherever you want, you can apply. That's why I said the theory of cause and effect is the theory of everything. You can apply it and you can understand the universe by using the truth. The Lord Buddha came to this world just to say about anicca and dukkha. The dukkha is not actually suffering. The dukkha is, I would say, actually there are two types of dukkha. One is how the mind perceives. The other one is how nature is created. Now you can see that everything is separated. You can see that everything is separated. If you take all the human beings, they are separated. If you take your hair, they are separated. But we know that everything is made up of atoms. Everything is made up of atoms, but they are separated. They are separated due to attraction forces and repulsion forces. But they all are made of atoms. They all are made up of same thing. But they are separated. That separateness is called jati. That's the characteristic of dukkha in the universe. But when it comes to the mind, you can perceive or you can understand it as the false sense of existence. They are not separated, but your mind perceives it as a separated object. But in nature, you can see everything is separated. Everything is separated. That's the dukkha or characteristic of dukkha. Everything is separated. But everything is separated due to those forces. But otherwise, everything is the same. Everything is the same. You all eat the same thing, but you are different. You are totally different. But you all eat the same thing. Therefore, we should know that everything should be the same, but they are separated. That's the dukkha in the universe. But in the mind, that's the false sense of existence. Therefore, that's why the Buddha asks us to understand the dukkha. I would say the dukkha because this dukkha is special. This dukkha is not suffering. Therefore, we have to understand it. If the dukkha is suffering, you can't understand it. You have to feel it. Therefore, if we take the direct translation from Pali to English, if you don't consider about the context, then we will take a different meaning. Therefore, don't convert dukkha to English. Then if you convert it, then what will happen? Then we will get a wrong meaning. That's why when people explain about Four Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths, then they talk about suffering, cause of suffering, and the cessation of suffering, and the path to cessation of suffering. They talk about suffering. because they got the direct translation from Duka to suffering. Because nobody wanted to consider about the truth because they didn't have a proper understanding about the Dhamma. Maybe they haven't practiced the path. That's the problem. They haven't practiced the path. Then if you don't practice the path, you can't understand the Dhamma. When you practice the path, you can, or whatever, not only practice the path, whatever path you have practiced. If you practice, you will see the difference. Otherwise, you will take the knowledge. That's it. You listen to someone and take the knowledge. But when you practice, means when you use it practically, then you will come to know that this is not suitable. That's why you should always practice. If you don't practice, then you won't be able to understand whether the Dhamma we talk is truth or not. You will just get it and you will know it. Your main responsibility is healing yourself, healing your mind. That's the main responsibility. And if you can do that, then you will know about the Dhamma. Then you will see if there is any distortion. Then you will see. Then you can think accordingly. Then you will find out whether it's true or false. Everything is dependent on the practice. Somehow. Now, if you know the anicca, if you know the dukkha, and you will realize that everything is anatta. That means nothing is fixed in this world. Nothing is an entity in this world. You will realize that. When you realize that, then you will feel about your existence. Then this existence can't be an entity. This existence should be a process. If this existence creates suffering, if you have seen the Dhamma, that means if you have understood the Dhamma thoroughly, then you know that this is only a process. You can eradicate this. But you should know this completely. You should know that this existence, the sense of existence, is only a process. It is false, but it exists. That sense itself exists. Because of that, suffering is created in the mind. Then the mind suffers. But you think that you are suffering. Actually, you are not suffering. Nobody is there to suffer. But the suffering is created in the mind. Suffering is created in the mind due to jati. Jati is created in the mind due to vexation. Vexation is created in the mind due to attachment. And attachment is there due to ignorance. Therefore, we need to eradicate ignorance. That's why we should contemplate about the Dhamma, and we should reflect the world through the Dhamma. When you feel vexation, then be courageous. And try to seize the process. Don't ever try to transform that to a pleasure. If you transform that, then ignorance will be empowered. Then you have to do extra work. because you have been doing something to at least suppress ignorance. But when you try to do something to come out of vexation, then it will empower ignorance. Then you have to do extra work to suppress it, to eradicate it. Therefore, you should be strong enough to bear, to tolerate until you meet your teacher. When your mind is vexed, tolerate it. Don't find the other route. You have been using that route. Therefore, that's the easiest path. That's the easiest way. Because you have been using it in your sansara. How many times? Uncountable times. Because that was the practice. That was the way. Because you haven't seen the other way. Because you haven't seen the Buddha. But now you have seen the Buddha. If you have seen the Buddha, now you have the other path. Therefore, you need to move or you need to travel on the other path. Therefore, don't take a chance to travel on the other path. The previous path you have been traveling. But it will be very easy. It will be very familiar. I think you don't need a teacher because you are a master of it. Because you have mastered it. You all know how to use that path. You need a teacher to use the other path. The path of cessation and the path to cessation of suffering. Therefore, try to do this. If you can hold it, if you can bear it, tolerate it, you will win. Discuss the Dhamma. The Dhamma will heal you. I'm telling you. This will happen. The Dhamma will heal you. Always discuss the Dhamma when you are vexed. Sometimes you can discuss the Dhamma with yourself. If it is hard, if you are vexed a lot, then you need an assistant. Therefore, go to your teacher. If you can't find a teacher, go to your colleague and discuss the Dhamma. I know this is so hard. This is so hard, and you will do something to come out of vexation because that's what you have been practicing so far. This practice is very new to you. This practice is unfamiliar to you. Therefore, you never use this. But if you use this, you will win. Otherwise, you will fail. Whether you are a monk or a nun or a lay person, if you don't practice the path that the Buddha has taught, you won't be able to attain Nibbana. I know you all want to attain Nibbana, but the thing is, that doesn't depend on your wanting. That doesn't depend on your need. That depends on the causes. If you have the right cause, you will see the right effect. Therefore, follow it. Be courageous. Be courageous. Help each other. Be a noble friend to others. Then you will find many noble friends. If you give one, you will get 10. If you want a friend, be a friend. If you want a noble friend, be a noble friend. If you can be a noble friend, you will find 10 noble friends to protect you. This friend is not just to help. This friend is to protect you. You should have a friend, then that friend will protect you. Otherwise, you will lose the path and you will lose the time, which means you have this life to practice the path. Because you got the Dhamma, now you know, if you can practice, you can cease suffering. But before you didn't know that. You thought that suffering is unavoidable. Therefore, you had to suffer. Therefore, you had to learn to earn some money. Because you knew that when you are suffering, you can use money to convert that suffering to a pleasure. That's why you got a good education. That's why the society asks us to be educated. Then we all got a good education, but finally, we couldn't achieve that target because even though you have or you are holding a PhD, you are still suffering because that doesn't depend on your education or your social status. Suffering is created due to ignorance and attachment. Therefore, somehow you need to eradicate ignorance and attachment. Then you won't be able to experience suffering. Therefore, whether you like it or not, there is only one path. You should practice that path. If not today, tomorrow. You can come up with many excuses if you want. You can say that I had to do this, I had to do that, but finally you had to do the same. You had to practice the path. There is only one path. Don't try to cut corners because no point in cutting corners because there is only one path. If you want, you can be deceived. If you want. If you want, you can come up with excuses. You can take time. You might think that I'm in my 20s. I have time. I'll join in my 40s, 60s. You can do that if God is your servant. That means if you know when you die, the date, the year you die, you can postpone this. Otherwise, you can't. We all know that we will die at any time. Therefore, when do we start? What is the best time to start? Right now. Therefore, every time when you try to create excuse, when you try to create an excuse, think about it. Think about it. Every time when you are lazy, think about it. You might postpone things because you are lazy right now. You might think that I will do it tomorrow. I will practice the path tomorrow. Today, I'm so tired. I will practice the path tomorrow. But remember this, you can't attain Nibbana tomorrow. You can attain Nibbana in the present. At the present. Right now you can attain Nibbana. Tomorrow you can't. Therefore, try to attain Nibbana right now. Try to enter Nibbana right now. Therefore, associate enthusiastic people who really want to attain Nibbana. Get views from them. Try to choose. Earn merits When you earn merits, you will find such kind of people. You will see them. When you see them, you can get views from them. But if you associate stupid, if you associate people who really don't want to do this, then you will be one of them. And your path will be ceased, not the suffering. Your path. And the other thing is, when you are lazy and when you try to create excuses, try to think about Nibbana, the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Think about that. When you achieve it, how do you feel it? How do you feel when you achieve the supreme bliss of Nibbana? Why it is supreme bliss? Actually, Nibbana. What is Nibbana? When you achieve it, what will happen to you? Nibbana is to experience happiness. Nibbana is to experience happiness. That's the only thing. When you achieve Nibbana, you can experience happiness. That means right now you didn't experience happiness. You haven't had a chance to experience happiness because happiness can't be created or destroyed or transformed. Happiness is created in the mind when the mind is created. It is inbuilt. You can't create it, you can't destroy it. Therefore, if someone comes to you and say that you destroyed my happiness, then actually he didn't know. He doesn't know anything about happiness. You can't destroy my happiness because my happiness is inbuilt where it is created with the mind. It is God-gifted. No one can destroy it. If you are angry, I'm not responsible for that. If you don't feel happiness, I'm not responsible for that. You are responsible for that. Therefore, no one can destroy happiness and no one can create happiness. And no one can transform happiness from something to something. It is there. But the only problem is you can't feel it. You only feel vexation because the mind is vexed all the time. Therefore, if you can do something to eradicate that vexation, if you can do something to cease that vexation, then you will experience happiness. When you experience happiness, then you can experience everything in the world happily. But right now, you experience only vexation. Therefore, when you experience something, you experience that thing with vexation. Therefore, you can't be satisfied. The mind can't be satisfied with anything. That's why the mind wants everything every day. It wants to use them day in and day out, but still, it is suffering. Because the mind feels the void. Therefore, it has to fill the void by seeing, by hearing, listening, tasting, by doing all sort of things. But that void is an illusion. That void is that vexation. The vexation is formed due to ignorance and attachment. Actually, the mind is completed. Your mind is perfect. You don't have to do anything to perfect your mind. If you try to perfect your mind, that means you have a wrong understanding about the mind, and the mind believes that it is not completed. It is not perfect. But the mind is perfect. Not only yours, but also animals. The animal's mind is also perfect. No one has to do anything to perfect the mind or make the mind perfect. No one has to do that. Don't try. But if you try, that means you don't have understood the Dhamma. You don't have understood about the reality. You don't have understood about the mind. There's a problem. We all know that there's a problem because we all experience a void, a gap, a pit, emptiness. Therefore, we try to fill that gap, that emptiness, by experiencing the world, by seeing, by visualizing. One day you will stop. How? By putting all these things into that void and covering it up? By that? Then when? How? You will stop? How? When you understand the Dhamma, you will stop. When you understand the Dhamma, you will stop, because when you understand the Dhamma, you will realize that it's only a void. That void is. And is that real? Then it's an illusion. It's an illusion, but the problem is you feel it. Let's assume that you feel something, or you're itchy, your head is itchy. You feel that itchiness. But nothing is there, but you feel it. Then when you feel it, you always scratch it. There's a problem in your nerve system, but you don't know that. You always feel something is on your head. Probably you have felt like horn type of thing in your head. Yes? But you feel it. Therefore, you always scratch. Can you stop doing that? No, you can't. You had to scratch. But by scratching, can you stop it? No. Actually, if something is on your head, you can wipe it out. That's fine. Then only one time you do that, and that's over. But the problem is, nothing is on your head, but you feel it. Therefore, you had to wipe it out. You had to scratch. You had to wipe it out. Sometimes you earn a lot of money and hire a person to scratch your head. That's what all the people do. They hire people. They hire people to scratch their head. By saying that we are rich. So ignorant. They will do it forever. And we have been doing it in the long journey of samsara. We had to do that because we felt it. And it's itchy. Therefore, we have to do something. But we have done it. But still, it's itchy. Because actually, there's a problem in the nervous system. That's why we feel that, but we didn't know. Then finally, we met a doctor, the Buddha, and he taught us, this is only a sense. This is a false sense. Nothing is there. This happens due to ignorance and attachment. Then you met a doctor, according to that story. You met a doctor, and that doctor said that nothing is on your head. This is a problem in your nerve system. I'll give you some medicine to cure your nerve system. But you went to meet the doctor to find a solution to wipe this out completely. Maybe you may ask, can I have a cream to apply on my head? Or maybe you may ask a person who can scratch it forever. Or a machine, maybe, to scratch it. This is what worldly people ask for. But the doctor started to treat your nerve system, and finally, your nerve system was healed. Now you won't feel that. Likewise, now you feel a void. Therefore, you try to fill something into that void. This is only a false sense. But you feel it, therefore you can't do anything. That's why we need to eradicate ignorance and attachment. Therefore, try your level best to do that. Try to practice that. Try to practice just to enlighten yourself. Have a life to enlighten yourself. Live your life to enlighten yourself. Use your time wisely, because time is an illusion, and use your life wisely. Because each time you spend your life, not time. Therefore, whenever you have a chance, practice the Dhamma. If I say that, you won't have a chance to practice the Dhamma. Therefore, I would say, use your life just to practice the Dhamma. Therefore, while you are doing anything, practice the Dhamma. Try. I know you can't do this completely. You can't do this because you are not familiar with this. But when you practice, as practice makes perfect, you will be perfect in this path. Practice every day. Don't let me force you to practice your path. While you are doing anything, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, you do it. Like you do these things to help other people. By doing that, you earn merits. That's fine. But by earning merits, I want you to apply the Dhamma. I want you to enlighten yourself. Then one day you will be free from suffering. You will see the truth. That's why the Lord Buddha said, Susukang vata jivama, ussukesu anussuka, ussukesu manusesu viharama anussuka. Then you don't have to do anything to come out of vexation. But if you don't understand the Dhamma, if you feel that void all the time, you try to fill the void. You try to pour something into that. That's why people go to parties. That's why people sing. That's why people listen to stand-up comedians. All the time they feel their life miserable. Therefore, they try to fill it. That's called ussukha in Pali. They try to fill it. They try to do something. Because they can't experience the serenity in the mind. They don't have a serene mind. That's why they feel that void. Don't forget that your mind is perfect. That's why everyone has the Buddha's nature. Every mind has the Buddha's nature. You just need to stop the process of suffering. Stop the process of vexation. That's the only thing you should do. That's why the Buddha asked us to cease the process of suffering. He didn't ask us to do something to make ourselves happy. He didn't talk about that happiness because happiness is inbuilt. You can't find something you have. You already have. Can you? You can't find something you already have. You already have it. Therefore, don't try to find it. It is there. But the problem is, suffering is created. Vexation is created. That's the problem. Therefore, that's your responsibility. If you really want to be happy one day, then eradicate your vexation and cease the process of vexation. Focus on that. Whatever you do, focus on that. When you help someone, help him to cease the process of suffering. That's the real help. That's the noble help. That's the most noble help you can do to someone. You can give to someone. That's the most noble gift that you can give to someone. Think about this. Many people will visit the monastery. Many people will come to you, and they will come with full of suffering, and they might have tried to commit suicide because they can't tolerate the pain. You are the savior. If you have understood the Dhamma, you can save their life. Not only their life, actually, you can save their samsara. Because if they commit suicide, whether they like it or not, they will go to hell. And they will suffer forever. But you can save them. You can show them the purpose of the life if you have seen it, if you have practiced, if you have felt happiness, you can talk about it. Therefore, try to see. Try to feel happiness. That's the main purpose of our project. That's the main result we always expect. Your happiness. You should experience happiness. Not anger, not lust, happiness. Therefore, don't expect any other thing from the sasana. Minimize them. Food, whatever it is edible, just take it. Don't think about that. Only focus on happiness. Don't complain. No point in complaining. Just have what you have and be satisfied with what you have. But you will feel that void when you eat. When you try to fill that void by using some sort of taste. But you should be able to understand that that void is only an illusion. And you can't fill it. If it is an illusion, how can you fill it? There's a bucket. If it is a hologram, how can you fill? You can't. Then don't try. But when you eat, you may feel that this is not delicious. That means you are thinking about some sort of delicious food. That means your mind always asks, give me more, give me more, give me more. While you are having something, you always ask, give me more, because you feel the emptiness. You feel the void. But that void is an illusion. It is created due to ignorance and attachment. You can't put food into that. You can't put taste into that and be satisfied. Don't try. Therefore, your mind is okay with the food, what you eat. That's why the mind perceives the taste of the food. If your mind rejects, if your mind doesn't like, then it won't be able to taste. It won't be able to perceive the taste. But whatever the food you take, the mind perceives it. That means the mind accepts it. That means the mind is perfect. Just eat. And focus on your business. Your only business is experience happiness. That's your only business. Don't focus on your clothing. Whatever is provided, just take it, just have it. What about a shelter? Don't waste your time to maintain a house. Don't think about all these things. And especially medicines. Don't try to cure this body completely. You can't. And don't try to wait until you have a healthy body. Because you won't. You won't have a healthy body. Because this body is a field to diseases. Therefore, when you are ill, try to take some medicine, whatever you have, and start focusing. Heed my words. Your life is decaying. Yata dandena gopalo gavo pachenti gochara. Evang jaracha machucha ayung pachenti panina. Therefore, don't forget that. Don't forget that. Day by day, your life is decaying. That means the time you have to attain Nibbana is decaying. It's a countdown. That countdown has started. You may have only one day. Because when you fall asleep on the chair, you will fall down from that and it will break your neck. Does it make sense to you? Therefore, this is the path. This is the practice you do. And you are really good at listening, not only all of you, some of you. You all are good at listening, but if you can practice, then you will see the difference. Just by listening, nothing happens. Nothing happens only by listening. You have to practice. You have to implement what you have learned. Implement. Then only can you achieve your salvation. take views. These things are views. Then you took it, then convert it to wisdom. This is the only way you can use it. If it is only a view, you will be knowledgeable and you can become a teacher. You can advise others. Like a person who protects other people's cows, other people's livestock. That person can't get anything, but he always saves, protects other people's livestock. Don't be such kind of person. Have your own livestock and protect them. Otherwise, finally, you will die empty-handed. Does it make sense? When will you practice? Every day I will give the same advice. Somehow take at least 1% of the whole and do it. Then you will see the difference. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Thank you.